All right, if you promise to be cool about this, I will make this podcast like a Quentin Tarantino movie. But only if you promise to be cool and that you'll stick around to watch the rest of it. Because I'm going to give you the ending of the podcast right now. I'm going to tell you the ending. It ends like this. But none of this matters because they're going to fall in line and do what the rest of the Big Ten wants them to do. They're going to take their money like everybody else. There's a report that Michigan and USC are not real thrilled about the private equity investment that is being worked out between the Big Ten and essentially the California pension fund, whatever the case may be, whatever the super intricate business details are. I don't think this podcast necessarily is the place to discuss the super intricate business details of a potential $2.4 to $2.8 billion private equity infusion into the Big Ten. I'm not an expert on that. And if you are watching this, listening to this, and expecting me to be an expert on it, or expecting really anybody talking about kind of college football rather than business to be an expert on this, I think you're probably looking in the wrong spot. But the point still stands that the Big Ten is trying to sell 10% of itself for $2.4 billion. For what reason other than money? Who can be sure? But Michigan and USC are very much not on board with this. First of all, kudos to them, because you shouldn't be on board with this, but that's a different discussion for a different day. Michigan and USC are saying, like, hey, aren't we better than this? Aren't we above this? And the rest of the Big Ten, who apparently, and I don't think this is necessarily Ohio State's, Penn State's, Michigan State's, Iowa, Wisconsin's of the world, as much as it's the Maryland, Rutgers, Illinois, USC, UCLA's of the world, who are saying, well, yeah, we could all use $138 million. I don't know what you would think that I wouldn't find use of that, but they could desperately use the cash that some of them because of exit fees, some of them because of past deals, some of them because they had administrators pay entirely too much to promise to play at the Rose Bowl until 2044. Long time. They could use the money because they're in debt. And Michigan and USC are saying, I don't especially care about your problems. Now, the issue with that comes is the Big Ten, to a fault, almost demands that, like, by God, we are pulling in the same direction in every facet. Everything needs to be an 18-0 vote, that we are all in this together. And Michigan and USC are somewhat kind of publicly being like, I'm not on board with this. And the Big Ten doesn't know how to deal with conflict. They're like your boomer mother. That I guess I'm just the worst mother ever. And so Michigan and USC are on board. Kudos to them. Now, you'll see a lot of bullcrap that will say, if Michigan and USC don't opt in, they're not going to be part of the branch of rules that's going to be extended, because that's part of the deal with the private equity. They don't feel like they're going to get this money unless we make everybody stay in the Big Ten until 20. So they're not going to be part of the Big Ten if they don't stop on board with this. First of all, yes, they are. Because remember, ending. Michigan and USC are going to take their check willingly, gladly, say, thanks, Big Ten, appreciate it. Oh, keepers, Mr. You are the greatest. And they get their $138 million check. They're going to do that. They're not going to meander off into college football wilderness and not be a member of the Big Ten. They're not going to stand in the way of everybody else. They're not going to probably try to get other schools on their side, even though they probably should. All of that is poppycock, malarkey, balderdash, other words that insinuate bullshit. Michigan and USC are going to take their check gladly and willingly. But for the sake of this argument, could Michigan and USC go into the college football wilderness and become independents? The answer to that question is unequivocally yes, without a shadow of a doubt. There are very few schools who could make independence work in 2025, 2026, 2027, whenever Michigan and USC would, in this stupid hypothetical situation, be kicked out of the Big Ten for not signing on for the conference's payday loan. Michigan and USC are on that list of schools who could make independence work. And I'm here to tell you that in some facets, Michigan and USC might be better off playing independent schedules than in the Big Ten, at least when it comes to football. Does it make literally every other sport be a real big hassle? Yeah, because are Michigan and USC going to play in the Big East in basketball and baseball? Michigan's not going to join the Horizon League for every sport other than football. They're going to have something, whether it's the Big East, the ACC. They joined Notre Dame as hey, do you care if we play football in your league? And they're like, no. But when it comes to football, not only would Michigan and USC probably be better off as independents, throwing money aside, because yes, the Big Ten, being a member of the Big Ten right now, is incredibly financially lucrative. Having a partner in independence like USC, where Michigan and USC could join together and say, hey, it sure would make a lot of sense for Fox to broadcast Michigan games at 2:30 every Saturday, 3:30 every Saturday. Every home game we play, we'll play at 3:30, and then that'll feed directly into the USC game at 7:30. Being a package deal would draw a lot of eyeballs because, you know what? Michigan and USC are going to be able to schedule a lot of home games because college football is a TV show masquerading as a sport, and thus Fox, NBC, ESPN, CBS, whoever would pay a pretty penny to Michigan and USC because a lot of people are going to watch Michigan and USC. Or if it was, for instance, Michigan and USC wanted to join up forces with, I know this sounds almost like, the three worst people you can think of. If Michigan, Notre Dame, and USC were all to join forces and say, hey, NBC, you know how you pay Notre Dame a lot of money right now? What if you paid the three of us $90 million a year? And Michigan will play at noon, Notre Dame will play at 3:30, USC will play at 7:30. You know who's saying no to that? Not many folks. A lot of people watch Michigan and USC football. A lot of people care about Michigan and USC football. And of the schools that could make independence work because they're going to have full stadiums on top of still fantastic booster NIL collective participation and a bunch of people watching their games on TV every Saturday. Michigan and USC are in that boat. They are coast to coast, nationwide brands that, regardless of whether Michigan and USC are playing the Notre Dames, Ohio States of the world, or the North Texas and Western Michigans and San Jose States of the world, people are going to watch. Yes. Michigan and USC are two places that have an abundance of money because they have insanely large fan bases who care deeply about the success of their programs. So, could Michigan and USC, if they really wanted to stick to their guns, if they really, truly believed in a principled approach that taking private equity money, venture capital, whatever you want to say, taking what equates to a college football payday loan And if that was legitimately the deal breaker for them, that they said, this is a bridge too far that we will not be participating in, we are willing to throw, in Michigan's case, 120 years of history aside. And USC, I think, would have even less allegiance to the Big Ten. And I'm here to tell you that I thought that USC maybe should have considered giving independence a go, rather when it was abundantly clear that the Pac-12 was going to disintegrate, that they should have paired with Notre Dame to say to NBC, hey, you give us $60 million between the two of us, and Notre Dame will play at 2:30 and USC will play at 7. And you'll have just spectacular viewership figures each Saturday. I think USC should have thought about that pretty long and hard, because being able to take $30 million and you get to decide whatever you damn well please, I think at some point beats taking $50 million and having to do what Rutgers, Maryland, Northwestern, Illinois, and Indiana want to do. But the point still stands. Michigan and USC are going to take their check gladly, willingly, cash it. They're not going to put it in a fireproof safe and never cash the damn thing, despite how much they vehemently disagree with the decision. They're going to remain members of the Big Ten. Anything else that you might read to the contrary is ridiculous. Horse manure. They're going to take their check. But make no mistake about it, if USC and Michigan wanted to be independent and wanted to make that work, they undeniably could. I just don't think that they're ever going to try it. And I don't think the Big Ten is ever, I don't think that's a card you can even play, because should they try to play it, I think the Big Ten should tell them, all right, we'll see you. But I don't think it's ever going to get to that point, because they're going to take their check gladly, willingly, cash it, and pocket the $138 million they're set up to get, because college football is about money, all things considered. It's undeniably true, and all of this is just posturing. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the posturing, because it is fun and interesting and a fun thought exercise of what it would take to be an independent, and Michigan and USC fit the bill of what it would take to make independence work in today's landscape of college football. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.